Can you see my knee? No? Okay, cool.
You see my knee? That's good.
Great. Oh man. Um, cool. So, gazing.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of like where the rubber meets the road
Right.
for seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, can we start with the practice? How
Sure.
how we actually perform it
Mm-hmm.
correctly?
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're going to again take a position that's comfortable for you. You know, usually it's sitting though. I mean, you can sit cross-legged or straight. It's fine. Either one is good. It's the one that you want to be most comfortable in because you'll be sitting there for a little while. And you don't have to sit to see. Obviously, you can do it standing, but it's just in the beginning, you want to relax as much as possible. So I take a position, in this case, sitting, to facilitate my comfort level while I'm relaxing and going into that state, right? So as I do each stage. So back is straight, shoulders relaxed, neck is straight, everything is good in alignment. I'm going to relax a little bit, and you can go through the relaxation short version or long version if you really want to, kind of maximize what's going on. And but you can do it just from, taking a few breaths and relaxing down. But again, relaxation is it's a real key. I keep coming back to it because it's so important. We've gone over it already. So, but it always is good to sort of quantity goes to quality, right? So the more I say it, the more it sinks in. And so I'm relaxing. Then I'm just taking the view, whatever I'm going to gaze at, right? So I have my full view, and instead of just focusing on a single item, right? If I'm looking at a single item and I'm going to use that to practice my gazing on, it's just in the center of my view. And then I'm going to open my view, as far as I can to get to the real periphery of my ability to see, right? My ability to look forward and see, as much as possible. And I'm going to relax my eyes and just, sort of keep, it's hard to say focus because everybody's going to think focusing on a single item. That's what we're normally looking at. But I'm going to relax and hold as much in the periphery as possible. So my attention is just spread across the whole plane of what I can actually view. And no emphasis on any one thing, right? So I'm just keeping my vision to the periphery and just letting that all just sort of wash out. And, the items may become a little blurry or not. At this point, it doesn't really matter. It's just practicing getting your view to be, more on the periphery and less on an individual thing. You're trying to resist, or if you notice and just observe, you'll notice that your eyes are always trying to focus on a single thing. It's like an anchor, right? So it's like, here's my world. There's a prominent thing. There's a light post. I've named it, and now I'm connected to that, and that sort of is my center, and everything else is periphery around that. In this case, we're consciously just going to the periphery and not putting emphasis on anything else. So just letting my eyes rest and holding my view here.
Is it too much if we start to see like double vision, or if it's like overly blurry, or is there a place where we
Yeah,
lose
you've got
the
to sort
effect?
of, yeah, you can sort of, find there's a little bit of leeway there, so if you're finding that you're forcing it, then it's, again, not a good thing, right? If you're going into double vision, a lot of times your eyes are crossing, and that's probably not the best thing that you want to do, right? There are techniques that are out there that people will say, cross your eyes, and it'll help you facilitate seeing. And, I find that to be awkward and difficult for people. So hence this idea. So it's like, again, just sort of a soft, relaxed view of the whole thing without putting emphasis on anything.
Do you ever do that where you hold up your hands in your periphery
You can to
kind
sort of
of
show where it
stimulate
is.
like how far out you can see
Oh,
and
sure.
that sort of thing?
Yeah. And that's one of those things that will actually, it'll extend over time too. So you might start and it's only here. And then all of a sudden, after a few times, you'll notice that, you have to stretch your arms back to find where where that wasn't happening before, right? So it's like your view is opening wider and wider, and that's just part of relaxing the eyes and, sort of acclimating to that different view than what you've been looking at before, because we're so focused on, pinpointing things and connecting to them.
Mm.
without thinking about it. So, and as I relax, so that's that first stage. You just want to be able to hold that, right? Just hold that peripheral without letting your eyes focus in on any one thing, without naming anything if you can possibly do it, right? So it's like you're just holding it. Nothing has attention more than anything else. Sounds simple. It is, but it'll take a little effort to, get to that place where you can do that comfortably and hold it for, several minutes. That's stage one, right? So then stage two is when you start to relax in that, and everything's the your depth perception starts to shift, right? And shift meaning that instead of seeing depth in things like we normally see, so we're seeing shadow and we're seeing light, and we can see that something is sitting in the middle of the room and there's something behind it. So that depth perception starts to fade. It starts to go away, right? So everything becomes sort of like a two-dimensional painting, but more like something that's symbols drawn or graphed on paper. They're not painted in with depth already. I mean, that's the mark of an artist, right? It's like putting depth into a picture, making it look like you're looking out a window. That all just, sort of goes away. And so now you're looking at this flat plane, and usually this is where you start to feel maybe a little funny, right? So it's like your conscious mind is starting to say, what's going on here? What are you doing? And this is not familiar, and hence it's uncomfortable, right? So
Is this where that idea of the psychic sensor comes in?
to some degree, yeah, that's the psychic sensor is it's kind of a funny idea, right? Where it's sort of this middleman in a way that's, not overtly conscious and not suspended in the subconscious either, right? It's sort of this gatekeeper that's between the two, and its job is to keep you alive, basically, right? So that's the part of you that is actually saying, like, this is not comfortable. It's also the part of you that will, if it gets too uncomfortable or too unfamiliar, right, it'll start to, throw breakers, and basically everything from making you so physically uncomfortable that you can't sit there anymore, you can't keep your concentration, to just trying to catch your attention and make things more distracting. So that's when you're in the zone, you're starting to get there, you feel slightly uncomfortable, and all of a sudden your vision snaps back to some specific thing in your field of view, and you name it automatically by focusing on it, and it's like you lose that whole first part again, right? And so it's like, and then we're starting over, and kind of coming back to that, and by doing it again and again and getting more familiar with it, it becomes more familiar, right? And familiarity is comfort, right? We know that place. Being unfamiliar with something is like stepping into the unknown, right? And so the unknown can be very dangerous, right? That's the way we perceive it, and that's the way our mind perceives it too. It's like almost anything unknown can be perceived to one degree or another as dangerous. I'm outside my comfort zone, and it can make people a little antsy, right, to one degree or another. So, and this is very strange for most people. So when you're doing it, and things are sort of shifting, and you're getting these sensations in your body because, wow, just by holding that focus, and it's not like you're staring blindly without blinking or any of those things, right? So it's not like I'm getting so much discomfort in my eyes.
It's a soft gaze.
It's a soft gaze, right? That when I do that, just changing that perceptual state makes you physically uncomfortable, or sort of gives you that feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, ooh, that's a little weird, that's a little uncomfortable. That's the psychic sensor doing that, because it's not a bad thing. I mean, I don't want people to think that that's something that's a negative, right? It's like its job is to keep you alive, and part of that is identifying what's uncomfortable and what's not, what's familiar, what's unknown, and and sort of steering you into the familiar, into the comfortable, and keeping you in that middle territory that's easy for you, because it doesn't mean that things can't come up, but it's more the percentage of that happening, of something completely out of control happening, is far less than just staying in the middle of the road and having the normal thing happen every day, day in and day out, right? So it likes the conformity of that. So anytime you're doing something to sort of upset that balance, it's going to raise its hand and go, I don't think so.
Are you sure you want to go there?
Not on my watch. Okay. It's like, and so you got to have to coax it in. And how do we coax it into that? By repetition, and taking one step in. If I snap back to it, it's like, okay, it's like not being upset, just because you will be upset. I mean, it's like I say, don't be upset, but you will be upset. You're just starting to get this like weird sensation that's happening, this weird view, like, wow, I never knew that I could do that, right? And it's like, and then all of a sudden you snap back and you're like, damn it, it's like, I was just sort of getting into that zone. It's like, you can do that, but don't be like bashing yourself for that. And don't bash your psychic sensor now that you know what we call it, and it's there to protect you. So it's like, it's more like, it's in a weird way, it's kind of like we resort back to like when we were negotiating with our parents, like, I'll call you before I leave, I'll call you when I get there, if I can just stay overnight, all the guys are going to be there, it's going to be fun, it's like, I really want to go, it's like, well, I don't know, it's like, it's that kind of thing.
Tomorrow?
Do you have work tomorrow? Are you going to be, can you mow the lawn before you go? It's like, oh yeah, I'll do it. There's that negotiation back and forth, right? And so with the psychic sensor, it's like that too. So it's sort of like, okay, well, I'm not going to deny myself food the next day because you pissed me off. It's like, I'm gonna try it again and get to that point. And if I can get to that point and not have it snap back, I'll push it a little bit further and see if I what's the next stage. And I just get acclimated to it, right? And it becomes familiar, just like you would acclimate yourself to a cold pool. When you first put your foot in, it's freezing, right? And you want to pull it out, but after a while, and as your body starts to acclimate to it, it becomes, good, right? You don't even notice the temperature a lot of times. So it's that same idea. It becomes familiar and becomes comfortable. Right?
So it's really, sounds like it's important to like adjust our expectations with these techniques, that it's like, it's not necessarily like all or nothing right away. It's not like, these things are things that we build up and we make progress through consistent repetition and getting better at it every time that we
it's
go
incremental.
It's incremental,
right?
Right.
And and there will be days when even things that, let's say, you get to that stage and it's become familiar to a point where you can reach that and hold it for an indefinite period of time, right? There will be days when you can't do that in the beginning, even though you've done it in the past, right?
Oh yeah,
and they're
getting
not
to
long
that stage
periods
where it starts to look two-dimensional or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because it's like,
some days you'll be good at it, and some days it's going to feel like less.
You're flat. Yeah. Or you just can't even get in there. It's like all kinds of disruptions come and distractions and all of that, from just being physically uncomfortable to mental distractions that are there, right? So, and those are just, there's nothing to worry about. It's like everybody goes through that. It's, again, in the beginning, it's much more common because, we're more affected by, like, let's say, your own personal biorhythms where you have, low days and high days, right? And if you're, during any day, where is that, and am I doing my practice at one of those low peaks, right? And so if you're doing it at that time, well, that may be one of those things where it's like, it's just not producing for you. And, and the next day at that higher peak, or even another time during that day at a higher peak when you're feeling really up and good, that may be enough, to really put you in a different place and have a different result, basically. So, it's nothing to be, upset about or bashing yourself or thinking that you can't do it. Right.
Yeah.
You need to, look at it over the course of 30 days.
You got to give it some play.
You got to give it some time. It's like, see where you can get consistently, over the longer course. It doesn't have to take that long, but it's, I would say any technique, that you're really going to consistently do, you want to give it a good 30 days to, really acclimate to see, it's like, is it consistently getting better?
Right.
Am I getting deeper? Am I able to hold it longer with less effort?
Right,
Those
right.
types of
And
things.
not to feel disappointed if like I'm not getting this like perfect view of auras or
Oh,
whatever.
no.
It's more like, can I get to the next stage of gazing?
Yeah, I mean, for
Can I
most
get
people, this is really foreign. So it's like even the supporting techniques are foreign. Like when we talked about breathing, and relaxation. I mean, most people, it's like, oh, sitting in the chair is relaxed. Okay, I'm ready to go. And breathing, oh, I'm breathing. It's like no big deal. You can count to four, sure, I can count to four. 4 times? Yeah, you can count to four times. It's like no, it's a foreign concept.
Yeah.
It's like they can understand it intellectually, but have you really spent some time doing these things? And again, over a longer period. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
doing it for 30 days, and you have, let's say, 26 days that are, really, really good, or, you can see incremental progress, right? Are you going to like focus on the 4 days that you had shit for results?
Right,
I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I
right,
mean, but a lot of people will, and we want to try to, change their mindset about that. It's
right.
like, don't bash yourself on that stuff. You know, you are what you think about most of the time, and if you focus on those good results, then you're going to bring more of those on.
Hmm.
It won't be as consistent in the beginning, but it will be there, and you will see incremental progress as you go along.
Yeah.
And
And
that's what to focus on.
and that's again coming back to like the incremental stages. It's kind of like knowing what to expect at each stage. You talked about that, that first stage of gazing where your eyes you're shifting your focus into the periphery, things become a little softer, and then the second stage where things start to appear to be two-dimensional to you, and then after that we should keep going. What's that next stage? So that people know, it's not like, again, that idea of like, I didn't fail because I couldn't see energy perfectly right away, but I'm succeeding because I can get to that two-dimensional stage.
Right.
I'm succeeding more because I can get to that next stage of gazing, and I know that I'm making progress. It's again like, so for me, it's like I need to know that like what I'm doing is working, and even though I'm not like fully there yet and I can't see perfectly yet, it's like I'm making progress because I can get to incrementally deeper stages of gazing, incrementally deeper stages of relaxation, as I'm practicing. I'm getting better. I'm getting somewhere.
Right. And being able to hold it for longer periods of time with less effort,
Mm,
not as many times snapping back to the normal looking,
right.
right? And, all of those things are pluses. So
Yeah.
it's like it's really, I mean, gazing is, it's sort of like that's the tool that you need in order to progress with seeing a lot of times. That's like the one, uh, let's say, in a way of thinking, it's the litmus test for seeing. It's the technique that we use over and over again to sort of stimulate that and be able to hold it and focus in on the seeing ability, and all of that it's that uh, technique that sort of revolves around everything else that we're doing, and we always come back to it. We're constantly using it to, enhance what we're doing and seeing how other things that we've done affect that. Because everything else that we do for seeing, all the other techniques, all the other meditations, all of that stuff, they're going to have a direct effect on the gazing. So the gazing is sort of like, okay, now that I've done this meditation and that's all been internal, it's like, okay, now how does it produce the effect physically for me? How can I put myself in a
Mm,
different perceptual state? It's the litmus test of how everything else is sort of building in. And you could say, oh, this has, maybe a 10% effect on that, but this technique has, I'm getting 40% out of that, and it's really, going much better from that. So I'm going to do this, but I'm going to not spend so much time on it. I'm going to go with what's going to be I'm getting the most dramatic effects from, but they're all culminated in that gazing practice, because it's where we can really see, like you said, where the rubber meets the road. Can I bring myself to the state? Can I get through these stages in a calm and relaxed way and bring myself to a different perceptual state where, that view of, seeing that energy is much more than the physical reality. I'm shifting the percentages of what I'm doing, where my focus, where my awareness is, right?
Right.
Not so much on the physical, which is what I do all day long, and sort of taking a little of that away and putting it more toward, observing, that energetic, the space around the person or even within the person, right? If you're using a person to view, right?
Right, right.
So
we
third stage of
yeah,
gazing.
so, yeah,
Sorry, off on
no,
me.
it's all good.
So the third stage, so I've gotten to that two-dimensional, plane, no depth.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically, everything's sort of it's sort of this modeled look, right?
Right. And
So
again, as we progress through these stages, there's no doing to get from one stage to the next. It's
no,
all rooted in this one practice, and it's about sustaining it and going deeper with it.
right, right, and that's and that's sort of the trick to it, right? Anytime you're trying to do something, it's going to snap you back into the paradigm of physical reality, where more force will produce more effect. And for us, focus is the more relaxed and let it happen. Basically, observe something that's already there. It's not like you have to put it there to observe it.
Right.
You're not forcing the observation. It's
Right.
you're relaxing and letting yourself sort of be accustomed to that, and and letting it come through.
Right. Again, it's reminding yourself that we don't need to create the apparatus for seeing energy. We already have it within us. We just need to put ourselves into a state of receptivity that will allow that to come online.
Right, right. So third stage, so I'm in the two-dimension part. I'm relaxing still. I'm still in my soft gaze. This is all through soft gazing, right? I'm not closing my eyes. I'm just keeping them open. And it'll get, you'll disconnect from, again, naming and seeing things as the things that they are, right? You'll stop that, and that will, that'll just sort of happen. It tends to happen pretty slowly, and then all of a sudden you realize, like, wow, this is really, this can be a little confusing, because if I stay in this gazing, I'm not really able to identify one thing from another. It all becomes sort of modeled. So it's sort of like, okay, that tree, I knew it was a tree, but now I'm having a hard time determining, what are the leaves and what are the shadows of the leaves, and what's the background behind it, and I'm having a hard time discerning where the trunk of the tree is, where it branches off, and it just becomes really amorphous. The view becomes more of a single plane with just different patches of colors and things around there, and so it becomes very homogeneous at that point, right? And at a certain stage, when you're holding that, it starts to move slightly. So at first you'll just notice, flickers of motion around. You may even start to see some flickers of light or things like that. It's not impossible to do that. And then it'll start to swirl, usually. So the image will start to turn and move, and it becomes, again, a little disorienting, right? I mean, if you think about how disoriented you get physically spinning, just sitting in a chair, just from breathing calmly and just from holding that soft gaze, all of a sudden it looks like this stuff is, your view is spinning independent of you doing anything. That can be disconcerting, right? If it just happened to you without hearing anything about this, or you're trying to do it, you'd be freaking out at that point. So
Right.
there's that, unfamiliar again. And
Am I going crazy? Is something wrong with my vision?
Yeah.
Am I okay?
And those are all
What's
questions that are
happening?
coming from the psychic sensor, right? It's like, he's finally like, that's it, pull the plug, red flags everywhere,
Whoa,
it's
whoa,
like,
whoa,
whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's exactly what mine does. Whoa, 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 get back here, And again, the tendency will be to, snap into a normal view very quickly. It would be like from this really weird state to like, focusing on something. And it's like, oh, there's the tree. Because naming it and anchoring your vision to that and isolating it as a separate thing anchors everything else around it. You've just built out your physical world again.
Yeah, you keep bringing up this idea of naming, and that's again what, if we were to look at one of the references that we have for seeing in, popular culture,
Mm-hmm.
the Castaneda books, it's
Mm-hmm.
like his mentor was always talking about this idea of stopping the world. And that's what you mean, right?
Right.
That's, this is this point where your vision starts to change and flatten out and then swirl, and you're not really able to identify things as well as you normally are.
Right.
That's an example of that. That's what we mean by that, correct?
Yes, because the concept is that the world is as it is because we name those things, and we engage with other people that also agree that those are those things, and on a material level they are those things, right? But they are also more, right? They are energy. Everything is energy, right? So, and so to get to that, we sort of have to, how do we put that material part more to the background and let that energetic part sort of shine through? That's the idea. We're just, again, shifting perspective, right? And so, and that's what these techniques do. And so, in that way of speaking, right, stopping the world, it's like the world is as it is, and it's, people were designed and were trained to think that it's immutable, right? That it's just
It
constant, and
is,
that's all it is.
yeah, and more than that, not just it is the way that it is, but our perception is anchored to it in a very fixed way.
Right, right. And so now that we've established that relaxation can change that, breathing can change that, and now a visual, reference can change that as well, right? So the reference being, I'm not just focused and tied to one thing after another and making it very solid and clear and defined, and giving it a name. I know what that is. And, that anchors it in this material plane, right? So, but by sort of relaxing and moving it to a different perceptual state, one in which we can observe more, and a more subtle level that's coming through, then the name and the sharpness of the material aspects sort of fades to the background a bit. It's not completely gone. It's not like it disappears, but it fades into the background. We're looking at a different perspective of that, or a different part of it that's sort of coming through. I mean, that's really all energy is. Seeing energy is just seeing a different aspect. We're putting attention on a different aspect, trying to perceive a different aspect of it, and bring our bodies into a state, our minds into a state, basically, where we can observe that and perceive it.
Right. And just to be clear, it's like seeing energy is seeing energy.
Right.
It's not like, just having again a different like feeling about this thing, or, perceiving more of it in an amorphous sense, but truly being able to perceive the energetic dimension of whatever it is that we put our attention on.
Well, as a visual
As a,
representation,
yeah, right, right.
compared to, like, I mean, there's definitely, people can tune almost any sense to, your mind is so flexible, that you could say, it's like when we, in a way of speaking, cross-trained synesthesia, right? It's like, oh, there's a rock. What does that rock sound like? It's like asking those questions of our subconscious, can you, block out the visual? Obviously, if it's not in your mouth, you're not going to taste it. You can't really smell a rock, as much as I can think of anyway, and no tactile sensation. But it's like, okay, so if I'm focusing on my hearing, it's sort of like, what is that perceptual state? How does each aspect of the material world present to us, and from what sense? Like visually is our primary, right? Hearing is probably next. Tactile is pretty darn close. Sense of smell, sense of taste, those things are a little bit more obscure, but they're there, right? I mean, they're good things. So and so the idea with all of those is that, if we can if we want to sense that energetic aspect that's underlying these physical aspects, right, then we can tune our senses, really any sense, to doing that. It's just that the visual sense a lot of times is, I think, the most easy to acclimate to.
And as an end result, the most dramatic in terms of belief and experience,
Oh,
and
definitely.
and utility as well.
Right, right, right. I mean, people that, maybe the next most common would be the, tactile sensation. So people
Mm-hmm.
having a sense of that, like what does it feel like, and what does it feel like as, not just from your hands or your fingers, but what does it feel like in your body when you're engaging or very focused on a certain thing,
Yeah, yeah. It's and this is a road that we can go down real deep, but I don't want to go too far because it can just spiral us into,
Something else.
another territory
Mm,
completely. But it is really beautiful in a way to remind ourselves of like the flexibility of our minds and our ability, and also the fact that like even though we assemble the world in a very specific way that's like very regimented and that we all agree on, it's like that's still a very narrow band of what we're capable of.
right.
And that's just keeping that idea in mind is like really powerful,
Yeah,
so
sure.
even as we go through and begin to practice these techniques, it's really cool.
Well, I would just say, to that, and we'll leave it at that, is that, uh, it's encouraging because it's like as much as you can do, or even you go through this full program, and you have that ability to be able to see, and you can turn it on and off, and you can ramp it up and down, and it really helps you. But it's a very adventurous idea to think, well, gee, what about my other senses? Can I hear things that normally I wouldn't be able to hear just on the material plane? Can I sense the smell of things that are, is there a smell sense to energy? Is there a taste to energy? Is there, a tactile sensation to certain energy? Obviously there is. I mean, we can get shocked by electricity. That's invisible and a type of energy, right? We can't see it, we can't smell it in general, and then but we can definitely feel it. So all of those things, it's I think that's um, it just it spikes up the wonder of the world again, where we seem to have been tamped down in that. It's like, get up, go to work, come home, go to bed, get up, go to work, come home, go to bed. Little break in the weekend, maybe. Then back to the same droning over and over again. It's like, it's like, God, it's like we've become brown paper bags, and it's like, it's like to reinstill that sense of adventure again is, I think, just a wondrous thing. It's like it really can engage you in life all over again. It's like, again, being childlike, right? It's like really engaged in life, and it's like there's always a new adventure around the corner. I mean, I think seeing is just a way to sort of enable that and let you know that that's something that you can go after. And where else can I find it in my life, and how else can I induce this in my life?
It's not just about like how is seeing going to affect my healing practice or whatever. It's
right.
like, how is seeing going to affect the next cookout that I go to?
Right. I mean, how can I, does it take the most mundane thing and open it up to a whole new level? It's like,
Right.
yeah, it does.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, I think I'm most excited about that for people. I mean, I know it's a practical thing for healers and all of this, but I think the biggest thing is that it really, it will engender that sense of adventure in people's lives again, because all you need to have is one experience, and then it's like, wow, what else can I do?
Right.
I did that. What else can I do? That's amazing. I mean, that's, again, it's very a childlike attitude as far as that goes. And, if I wanted to, sort of put the practical end on that, it's like, wow, what else can I do? And how can it help me bring into being the life that I really want for myself and for my family and for my friends and for my community, and on and on and on, right? But first for myself, because if I don't start from ground zero, how's it going to affect anybody else, really?
Right.
So it's like, this is a good thing. I mean, it's always nice to be around somebody who's really just, loving life, right? It's like, it's like, they're not hard to be around.
Right.
It's like, hey, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing? Well, let me tell you about this. It's like, whatever it is, it's like you're very engaged in it. And it's like, it's infectious, right? It's like, wow, It's like at first it sounded like, man, he's really doing lots of cool things. And it's like maybe I could do some cool things. Well, let's give this a try. It's like it's very engaging, and I think that's one of those aspects that's sort of put on the back burner, and we don't really think about it that much. But just being in that, having those little adventures here and there, and sort of being engaged in life in a much greater capacity, you feel different and you act different because you feel different, and you engage life differently. And that means your friends and acquaintances too. It's like they notice something changing in you, and they're affected by that. They're in training to it, right? As in close proximity. And it's sort of like, it's inspiring to be around those people. So, I mean, that's why people, look for mentors like that, right? In whatever avenue they're looking for, whether it's sports or, business or whatever. I mean, they're looking for those people because they're just, it's infectious. You want to, like, by osmosis, just get some of
Yeah.
that, right? It's like,
Totally.
that's what we're all expecting, And it's, and to some degree it's true, but then, then you have to, ante up, it's like, put in your chips, get in the game, it's like, be involved, risk, there's some risk, it's like, don't worry about being disappointed, bet on yourself, for once in your life, bet on yourself, that you can do this. And, don't worry about what society thinks, it's like, you're in it for your life, to make your life into what you want it to be. And it's just one thing, right? Seeing is just one thing. But it can be that, just that first step that really propels you into a whole different life experience.
Yeah.
And it will bleed into everything else that you do. And, that's encouraging.
And very exciting.
And very exciting. That's what I mean. It's like, it really is an adventure.
Yeah. And just having those ideas in mind, I just find to be so helpful, like, especially when it comes to pushing through, or not pushing through, right, but transitioning through these stages of even the gazing practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because to wrap it up, it's like that final stage of gazing where things start to swirl can be one of the most uncomfortable stages.
Oh, definitely.
And also that's that real
tipping point
where the energetic is going to begin to shine through.
Right. And as that swirling, either it can take a couple different turns, right? So it can increase until, it's a very homogeneous state. And if you can hold yourself in a relaxed state and just keep into your gazing, then you'll start to see this luminosity come through, So, and that settles down the movement and all of that. You become less disoriented. But, what comes up is, in some ways, I don't want to say disorienting because it sounds like it's confusing, but it's more like the awe of it, being able to see that luminosity coming through around things or whatever, and through things. That's that can be a little disconcerting. Let's put it that way. Even though it's in a nice way, right? You'd be like, "Oh my God, it's happened!
It's happening!"
Made it!" And it's like, But at that point, that's another type of shock, right? Even though it's a good shock, it's still a shock, right?
Right.
And that'll be like, zoop, you'll be back to
first. It's
focusing.
the shock of discomfort, then it's the shock of awe and excitement, then it's the
and then I think at that stage you'll have hopefully you'll have enough experience, but at that point it's like, that's when people get really upset because I was just there. I had this, oh my God, it was amazing. And then it was like in an instant, you're bang right back. It's sort of like that first time you lucid dream, right? It's like, you're out and you realize you're out, and it's like, oh my God, it really is true. And then as soon as you do that, in that spike of excitement and realization, it's like, boop, you're back in bed and you're like,
right.
No.
Yeah. And not just I think the thing about that is, like, when when you go into that lucid dream, it's like, it's not just like, oh, I can be conscious in my dreams, but the shock of how physically real it seems. It's like, oh my God, this is just as real as,
if not more so.
Yeah.
It's like, even it's surreal, right?
Right.
Like colors are more saturated, and textures are, it's like that's a place where you can, where we start to see this synesthesia, take off, right? If you have that idea. So it's like, you can't, there is a smell to the color blue.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right,
there is a taste to the color red. You know, it's like all
right,
of those things start to, your senses cross over a bit. And
right.
so, you know, it's like
And the same thing with seeing, right? It's like,
same thing with
oh my
seeing.
God, it is real. Oh my God, you actually can see. Oh
Right.
my, you
But
know?
that, you know, because your brain will start jumping ahead leaps instead of just making incremental process, right? So it's
Mm,
like, you know, because you'll be like, oh my God, it's actually happening. Oh my God, that means there really is energy there. Well, then, you know, if I extrapolate that information, I don't have to go through incremental steps. It's like, so everything is energy. You know, it's like it becomes this process where you can get very overwhelmed really quickly. And that's another way to kind of snap back to that, right? So it's like
mm.
try to use your breathing as much as possible to stay in the zone as long as you can. Keep to your fourfold breath. If you and if you are so good that you can stay in control through that, and you will over time, but I'm just saying in the beginning, if you can stay, you know, when you can stay in control with your breathing and keep that luminosity, it's like you're just sensing in your body, right? What that, you know, what does it feel like to your body? Because that's going to give you a physical anchor for that ability. You know, where's my brain waves at that point? You know, where's my entrainment at that point? You know, all of that culminates in a sensation in the physical form. So, you know, if you can anchor that in, that's the thing to kind of keep going back to. It's like now you have a target, you can move back to that. You might use the same technique, but you're going to move back to that sensation that's going to tell you when you're in the zone.
Mm,
And so later on, as that, you know, as you make that process more and more easy, right?
mm.
Quicker, easier, uh, you know, all you'll need to do in the end is just sort of, you know, either link it to a word or bring up the sensation and you'll be in. And
Right,
that's it.
right,
You get past all those other beginning stages. You don't need to do that anymore.
right. So don't get disappointed if you get tripped up. Be excited because you're making
Because
progress.
you're making progress. That's right. That's right. And you have, you know, there's more adventure. It's like, oh, you know, it's like, I mean, you know, if I link it to something that we can all relate to, is it's sort of like you know, anything that you do, you know, sports wise or anything else, even fun wise, that's a skill, right? It's like, you know, yeah, you might get a little upset if you know, if you're only hitting singles all the time, and you know, and but every now and then you hit that sweet spot and you send the ball out of the park, and it's like, you know, how do I how do I keep going for that? You know, that's sort of my reference point, right? I'm always trying to hit that. I'm always trying to do that. And, you know, it's like, yeah, I get a little upset if it's just this, but it's like at the same time, I'm excited about trying to, you know, bring my average up, you know,
Right,
hit
right,
more and
right.
more of them out of the park, you know, that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So it's like, yeah, there's that joyful effort that going through it, right?
Don't be
So
disappointed if you
don't be
don't hit a
disappointed.
home run. Be excited if you actually make contact.
Yeah, that's it. And then because now you can progress and move forward from there, right?
Yeah,
So that's the thing. It's like no adult that I can think of, average adult, is excited about being able to put, you know, a 2-year-old's 4-piece puzzle together.
right.
You know, they got it perfect the first time, but it's sort of like, did you really think you weren't going to be able to do that? And how much, how much joy do you get from that? Because it's so easy that it's like, it's nothing. You don't think about it, right?
Right.
So this is challenging. You know, it's completely changing the paradigm in which you've been raised and how you think the world actually works. And so it's and even if you've come to accept that the world works that way, it's different when you actually experience it that way than
Right.
just intellectually thinking
And
that it works that way.
it's completely opposite from the mundanity that we've been entranced into, because if we can change our perception in this dramatic way, you know, it's like we also realize that there's no bottom to that.
Right. And what else can we do?
Right.
I mean, that's where the excitement really starts,
Right.
right?
How
It's like,
far can I
how
push
far
this?
can I go with this? And what can I do? What practical uses can I make of it? How is it going to enhance my life?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I always sort of bring it back to that. How will it enhance my life? And by extension, the life of my family, the colleagues, friends, community, all of that. So I think that that's a good thing to keep in mind as well.
Awesome. All right, man. I think we'll wrap it up with that.
There you go.
Really appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Thanks.